this is the first presentation for our new webinar series called the Why Ocean Providence is Super Relevant in Today's World. And the official title is True Parents Plan to Solve World Hunger and the Endeavor to Achieve World Peace. So if you saw the introduction, we divided this is over like 20-part series, but we divided into roughly big parts, like part 1, part 2, and each part is subdivided into different sections. So today's presentation is part 1, Intro to Ocean Providence. It's going to be a series, intro. And then within that, this is section 1. We're going to focus on True Parents Dream of Peace today. So from the autobiography, True Father's autobiography, he said, if nationalities and religions continue maliciously to attack each other, humanity has no future. But we are not without hope. Clearly, there is hope. I have lived my life without ever letting go of that hope and always kept alive that dream of peace. So he's talking about his dream of peace, and this is the first chapter of his autobiography. He starts talking about his dream. So what is True Father's dream of peace? By the way, we're gonna use these books. You can pause the video and see, but we are going to use these books, featuring True Father's words on various occasions about the Ocean Providence. So in this specific presentation, we will discuss the following 3 points. Number 1, how much did True Parents invest into the ocean? Number 2, what really was True Parents' dream of peace? And number 3, how is ocean related to that dream of peace? Okay, so let's get into it. The first one, number 1, actually, how much did True Parents invest into the ocean? So we all know True Parents invested into the ocean. A lot of second gens might not know that they even did that, but roughly, almost everybody knows True Father. There's a lot of pictures of True Parents fishing, especially True Father. And, he started a lot of maritime businesses, fishery businesses. And so he did, we all know he did invest into the ocean, a lot. So, but, what is the degree of that investment, right? How much actually did they invest? Okay, so we often see photos of them fishing, but what was the actual degree of investment, right, into the ocean? And despite being religious leaders, they, despite being a leader of like, a religious movement, why did True Parents go out fishing so much, right? That is probably a common question, especially among people who really don't know about True Parents too much. So these are some of the pictures, throughout the years, True Parents, True Father, True Mother, going into various places of the world fishing. And many of them exist, and many pictures are very, very nice, very cool to see. So if we look at some of his words, True Father's words on how much he actually invested into the ocean. So let's ask him, right? His words, how much did he invest? So he said, I saw that the key to future food problem lies in the ocean and have endeavored to develop a wide range of oceanic businesses from nothing. I spent more time in the ocean than anyone else, thinking on the ocean, praying on the ocean, and struggled on the ocean. How much time and effort did I invest? You cannot imagine it. So this is from 1991. So the amount of time True Parents invested into the ocean go far beyond our imagination, according to True Father. And there's always, people saying, right? It is said that True Father himself has said, he has claimed that he used up 2/3 of his life relating in some way to the ocean as well. So specifically, where and when did True Parents invest into the ocean? So let's take a look at some of the parts of the world that they developed the Ocean Providence. Okay, so it started all the way back in Yamok Church, Cheonpyeong Lake, Jeju, all the way back in the 60s. And of course, we all know the New York, New Jersey Ocean Church and oceanic businesses and foundations here. Boston, Alabama. Boston is Gloucester, right? Basically, Alabama, the shipyard, and Las Vegas, Seattle, Alaska, of course. And then, of course, they spent a considerable amount of time in South America developing Ocean Foundation as well, namely Jardim, Navileke, Punta del Este, and Corrientes. And of course, Hawaii, don't forget Hawaii. And then later, in the later years of True Father's earthly life, Yosu, Komundo were also developed, as well as Japan. So it's almost like a circling, it says Spain here, but it's almost like circling this, kind of circling this whole area, right? And then went all the way back to Korea at the end, sort of feeling. And Las Vegas also at the end. So what were the contents of their Oceanic Foundation? So there are some, here are some of the major contents of what sort of Oceanic Foundation did they create. So Ocean Church, fishing and ocean training across the world, fishery businesses, fish sales, restaurants, boats and ships, processing, such as fish powder and others, tourism businesses, hobby industry, and Ideal Village projects. So some of these projects also happened in here and here, things like that. So many different aspects of Oceanic Foundations were built across the world. So let's look at some of these through the photos once again. So this is early days in the 60s, right? In Yamok, this is how you write the Yamok. So True Father began fishing and farm training for the members at Yamok Church in Korea. So these are some of the precious old pictures of True Parents and the members. Cheonpyeong Lake, fishing and with the members and True Family as well. And then something notable happened in 1963. The members, along with True Parents, built the boat of heavenly victory called Chonseung-ho. It was a fishing vessel. And this is kind of like the official start, right, of Ocean Providence. This is how you write the name of the heavenly victory, the boat's name. So this is some of the pictures of the building of Chonseung-ho in 1963. So boat building began with Chonseung-ho, but why would they even consider building fishing boats, right? Why was this a thing, right? So he said, I started building boats even before coming to America. I began making boats in 1963, and I have been sailing boats to this day. During the years 1973, 1983, 1993, I have been going on boats for 24 years. I have ridden in boats from morning to midnight. At times I would go on boats until 3 o'clock in the morning in Alaska. I rode in boats with single-mindedness and resolve. So this was written in the Pacific Rim Providence, which is in Chonsongyeong. So why would True Parents of humankind, right, decide to suddenly build boats? So we will discuss this point later on. We're going to focus on this part later on in the webinar series. So why, build fishing boats? And when True Parents built the fishing boat, what were some of the reactions, right? According to True Father's words. So he said, water is the source of life. I launched the boat with the belief that in a similar way to how we receive life from water, we need to go out onto the ocean and pass through a series of trials there in order to become capable of surviving the trials we will face on land. Chonseung-ho was an exceptional boat. It sailed throughout the Yellow Sea and caught many fish. The reaction of many, though, was that we had enough to do on land and that there was no need for us to be going out onto the ocean and catching fish. I sensed, however, that the world was about to enter an oceanic era. The launching of Chonseung-ho was a small but precious first step in opening the era. So, the reaction of some of the members weren't too hot, that's what he wrote down. This is from his autobiography. So from the beginning, perceptions, the heart of True Father and the members seemed to differ somewhat, right? And so we will also cover this topic in the series later on, as Truefather left a lot of words regarding that as well. Like, he has high hopes, he has all these things that he wants to do, and then a lot of people don't want to do it, that type of thing. And it's understandable, it's very difficult. And going on the ocean, even I get seasick. So, it to me, it's like very relatable. But we're gonna cover this. A lot of sad and disappointing words. He's left such words as well. Okay, so Truefather wanted to build shipyards in various parts of Korea, even in North Korea. So this can be seen from some of the words he left as well. So he said, "I went aboard a boat every day for 25 years because I must promote the marine industry with my own hands. Even today, I came back from the Okpo shipyard. I went there to inspect that shipyard to decide whether to buy it or enter North Korea and build a bigger shipyard in the Delta area of Manchuria and the Soviet Union. I alone thought about those things. Only then can the North Koreans be saved." So this is from Pacific Rim Providence. So what does shipbuilding have to do with, actually saving North Korea, right? He even goes on to say, only then can the North Koreans be saved. But what's that got to do with anything, right? What does shipbuilding connected to such a thing, right? So of course, this will be covered later in the series as well, as one of the main focuses. Okay, so True Parents began Ocean Providence in the US in 1974. That was the year when he launched this all-out fishing Providence. So it started in Boston, Gloucester, as we all know. And so True Parents moved their main base of operations to the United States in the year 1971. And they officially started the United States Ocean Providence on August 1st, 1974. So at Gloucester, Massachusetts, on top of New Hope, Truefather offered a prayer to heaven, promising to establish an Ocean Providence Foundation all over the United States in the next 20 years. So what we should note here is that it was 1974, and he promised to God that in the next 20 years, he will establish Ocean Providence Foundation. So that would make it 1994. So that is a year that we should all note in our minds. Okay, so the 20-year plan in the United States. According to Truefather's words, he said, "Every year, 20 million people die of starvation. That is 60,000 people a day. Is the president of the United States going to take responsibility for that? Will Gorbachev of the Soviet Union take responsibility? Who will take responsibility for this? Who in the world is going to do that? The True Parents and the siblings of the True Parents have to take responsibility for it. For this reason, all our work with the sea is something I have been planning and preparing for over the last 20 years. North America has 3 of the great fishing grounds in the world. These are the waters off Alaska, the waters of the Atlantic from Nebraska Point up to Canada, and the Gulf of Mexico. You do not know how abundant the marine resources in those locations are. If you really knew, you would be astonished. The vein of gold would dry up after several decades of digging, but ocean resources are eternal. They have no owner. That is why I have made a 20-year plan and have now been investing in the marine industry for 15 years. The people in the marine industry in America are holding demonstrations shouting out, 'Reverend Moon is a heretic,' and out with Reverend Moon. They are making all kinds of noise, but it does not matter because the key point is competence." So this is also from Pacific Rim Providence. So some interesting things were said here, right? And one thing to note is he again said, he's been planning and preparing for the last 20 years. So there's this thing, right? Like a 20-year thing, 20-year plan. So this will also be a focus in one of the webinar presentations. Okay, so Truefather developed his own tuna fishing method even, right? He went to Gloucester and then, tackled this, challenged this tuna fishing. And eventually he came up with this own, specialized fishing method and taught it to the members at Ocean Challenges. So this happened in Gloucester. And he also began fishing training for North American seminar students, the UTS students, in the latter half of 1970s. So there are some, these nice black and white pictures, photos of True going to fishing, nearby the UTS in Beartown, near the UTS seminary. So in this picture, he's teaching to catch fish by the Hudson River, mainly by net at the time, because he didn't have a boat ready to use with the members. So this is him going towards the Hudson River. And all these young members are watching True catch fish, and him training members in net making. And then in 1978, he actually began boat development and manufacturing in the United States. So, some of the earlier boat building members here, along with True and then training boat, the One Hope 1, the legendary One Hope #1 was completed in 1980. And so True officially established this thing called Ocean Church in the United States in 1980 as well. So October 1st, 1980 is the anniversary date. October 1st, he declared the establishment of 30 ocean churches across America. He decided up to 24 UTS graduates to be in charge at the time. This specific map that he's writing on is actually on the wall of the Ocean Tribe in New Jersey, Little Ferry, which is a very kind of a legendary map, which is amazing to see. So he also left words in the vein of sort of like saying Ocean Church, this thing specifically called Ocean Church, right? There's Ocean Providence, but then he established this thing called Ocean Church. And then he left words like, this is kind of the only hope. This is a great hope for the future type of words. So let's read some of them. He said, "Just put my ideas into action and you will find the success I am talking about. The only hope the Unification Church has for the future lies in the Ocean Church. Don't you see how serious your position is? What's the limit of the future of those who go to the ocean? I can say with complete confidence, there's no limit." So what happened to Ocean Church, right? Ocean Church is right now called the Ocean Tribe. And what's been happening in terms of Ocean Church, right? Which was, quote unquote, the only hope the Unification Church has, right, according to True. So this will also be covered later in the series as the main focus as well. So, okay, so Ocean Challenge, the famous Ocean Challenges, the legendary Gloucester Ocean Challenges, tuna fishing started in the United States in 1981. So based in Gloucester, Massachusetts, tuna fishing training was held every summer off the coast of Boston. Members from all over the United States passed through this course. So in terms of ocean training, these are some of the places that True Parents often held ocean training workshops with the members, along with the leaders and members. Some of the pictures here, True training Japanese women, and this is Jeju, and a lot of fishing done here, here, everywhere actually, here, Hawaii as well, and then early days in Yamok and Cheonpyeon, and then later in Yosu and Jeju. So these are, once again, it's kind of like making a round circle across the world, which is interesting to note. So this is some pictures from South America in Jardim when he was holding a fishing workshop with the National Messiahs, I believe. So True trained us in fishing all throughout his life. True began fishing training in the early days in Korea during the Yamok, right? We saw some pictures. And until his ascension in 2012, he continued to train the Unification members all over the world through numerous workshops, ocean challenges, and also tournaments. It can be said that almost all workshops given by him was fishing workshops. So True Parents trained all members through ocean training and invested people and funds into marine businesses and hobby tourism industry, one after another. So he, first of all, trained himself first, set that tradition, set that investment, and kind of a proof that this is important by his own actions. And then he trained ocean training, he held ocean training sessions, workshops for all the members and leaders. And then it led to all these projects popping up. under the ocean enterprises. So fishery products and distribution and sales, a large shipyard, small boat manufacturing, seafood restaurants, and large fishing vessels, tackle shop, transportation industry, fish powder, New Hope Farm, maritime school in New Jersey, international fishing tournaments across the world, fishery products and processing factories, and ocean tourism industry and resort projects, and also research into fish farms, etc. So all these things were laid out as a foundation. So through the foundation on the ocean, direction towards the future will be straight, in Truffaut's words. So let's read that quote from God's Will on the Ocean. He said, "We have to make this foundation for the entire world. This is the fastest way to bring people and nations together. I'm always thinking how this can be done, and that is why I am making a foundation on the ocean. When we make this foundation, our direction towards the future will be straight." So when we could successfully make this foundation on the ocean, he's saying that the direction for our future, right, will be straight. So True Parents launched various marine businesses and hobby tourism businesses around the world. So this is one of the chief examples of today, right? Ocean Peace. Everybody knows Ocean Peace. Large fishing vessels. And so Truffaut made plans to process fish powder in Alaska, Uruguay, and others in order to efficiently deliver marine products to the starving population of the world. So the first fish processing plant, the large building in the center, the second fish processing factory left of the bridge, were acquired. And beginning of Ocean Providence in Alaska started back in 1978. And these are some of the pictures of, this is quite bad quality, but these are some of the pictures of the fishery businesses and the boats. So Truffaut built ships, processed fish, built a distribution and sales network for marine products, and even operated restaurants, right? We all know those restaurants. The New York Times has basically concluded that Truffaut is the person who made sushi popular here in America, right? So all those sushi restaurants across America. And in 1980s, also, Providence of Seafood in Japan was launched according to Truffaut's instructions. So they began sales of farmed tuna from Spain, as well as purchasing and sales of tuna from around the world. So that happened in Japan as well. And this is a picture, very interesting picture here. So in this way, Oceanic Foundation was established centered on mainly in North America for 20 years, right? We saw that it started in 1974. And then for 20 years, True Parents heavily invested in the North America region in terms of Ocean Providence, Ocean Foundation. He then planned to expand this foundation towards the world. So Truffaut sent members, boats, and fishing tackles, as seen here, to 185 nations around the world in his plan to expand the Ocean Providence globally. So whatever that was done, the foundation that was done for 20 years in North America was to be expanded to the 185 nations in Truffaut's, in Truffaut's expectation, right? In his head, this was supposed to be expanded to 185 nations around the world. And this is a picture of, at East Garden, members are preparing this 185 sets of, these fishing tackles to be sent to the missionaries in each nation. So clearly, Truffaut wanted, members to do some sort of ocean business, oceanic foundation, right, in each section of the world. And this is a picture of 43 Japanese women after working at the processing plants and also experiencing fishing in Alaska. They received an order, special order from Truffaut to go out to the world to develop Ocean Providence. So this also happened in 1989. So this is the picture of all the members back then. So there are some words that we can read from Truffaut, how he expected to globalize this 20-year foundation in North America. He said, "You unificationists must fulfill your responsibility to lead them and care for these people. You should go to the developing nations and become instructors and teachers at kindergartens, elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, and universities. You should improve standards by teaching them the most modern agricultural methods. This is how you can save people who would otherwise starve to death. They first need to know how to fish effectively. And this is why I sent 4 boats each to 160 nations. You're thinking, what's the use of doing that? Because your hearts and minds are not enlightened. But I am telling you, we must do it. So he expected to send 4 boats each to 160 nations. So you can really see kind of the intention here, right? If 4 boats were to be sent to 160 nations, obviously members are to use those 4 boats to create some sort of oceanic foundation in each part of the world, right? On top of the tackle sets that he's shipped to across the world. You know, we can really see he really heavily invested in North America first, and then really wanted to spread that out to the world at once. 4 boats each to 160 nations. I can't imagine how many boats they had to make in order to actually make that happen. So, you know, that is a big, huge project that he was planning there. So, but what happened to this kind of globalization efforts? You can imagine it won't be that easy, right? It won't be easy. So this will also be discussed later in the series as well. Okay, so in this way, true parents had invested a lot of time into the ocean. So there is actually no doubt as to their seriousness towards the ocean. So Truffaut's fishing episode, so there are many episodes of Truffaut, but this notable episode happened in 2003. So how much, right, seriousness did Truffaut have, right? How serious was Truffaut about going out fishing? How important was it, right? So on March 17th, 2003, Truffaut was actually hospitalized to fight his illness. It was almost like he was fighting for his life. It was that bad at the time. So there's a theory that Truffaut fell ill due to the United States invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq being divergent from God's providence. So there is a theory, you know, many members talk about this, but he was actually hospitalized with a very, very bad situation. So this photo was taken at East Garden on May 1st. You can see his thin, you know, he became very, very thin. This is a year before, so you can clearly see the difference there. But you know, Truffaut, right? Right after he got discharged, he immediately went out fishing, and he couldn't even walk on his own. So the members were supporting him, and then you know, he still went out fishing even in that condition. So until his ascension, actually, in 2012, Truffaut dedicated himself and invested a great deal into ocean providence. As we read before, you know, right up to the moment of his ascension, right? He was continuously training people in Yosu to become captains. So what is certain is that Truffaut's fishing was obviously, right, not a mere hobby. So why would he fish so much? Like, why did he need to go out so much, right? Why was he so serious about that? So let's ask his words. So he said, around the world, 20 million people die of starvation each year. How can we save them from dying? I do not go fishing for fun. When I fish, I gaze at the ocean and think about those 20 million people who live across that great ocean. I have to open the way to save them, even if it means offering my own flesh and blood. No one is thinking about this problem. Fishing is my strategy to make others not forget about them, the starving people. That is why I am trying to catch a lot of fish from the ocean and distribute them. Without the ocean, there is no way to save starving people. Although I am almost 80 years old, I still make time to go fishing, even in rain or snow. All the church leaders try to run away, making excuses and doing whatever they can to prevent me from going fishing. They do that because they do not understand why I am doing it. So he, you know, here you can really see how serious he was in going out fishing, right? He said, it's not for fun. It's actually his strategy to make others not forget about the starving people. And, you know, he's almost hoping, like, if they really knew, right, why I'm doing it, then they would come, they would go, and they would let me go as well, right? So he's kind of telling us how serious he was there. So the second section, so far we've discussed how much true parents invested into the ocean, right, until now. But more fundamentally, what is the dream of peace, right? We started talking about, we started this presentation with his quote on his dream of peace, right? So what was he talking about, right? So dream means basically kind of what he wants to see, right? It's the goal. So what is True Parents' goal? What is True Parents' dream of peace? So True Father talks about his dream of peace in chapter 1 of his autobiography. So here, chapter 1, right? The actual autobiography actually starts with this paragraph. He said, I have lived my life with just one thought. I wanted to bring about a world of peace, a world where there are no wars and where all humankind lives in love. And he said, if nationalities and religions continue maliciously to attack each other, humanity has no future. There will be an endless cycle of terror and warfare until one day we become extinct. But we are not without hope. Clearly, there is hope. I have lived my life without ever letting go of that hope and always kept alive the dream of peace. What I want is to wipe away completely the walls and fences that divide the world in myriad ways and to create a world of unity. I want to tear down the walls between religions and between races and fill in the gap between the rich and the poor. Once that is done, we can re-establish the world of peace that God created in the beginning. I am talking about a world where no one goes hungry and no one sheds tears. So he's, humanity's hope. He's talking about, there is hope, right? And then he has this wish, the dream of peace. So he was talking about the unity of religions, of course, and unity of nations and races, which means a world with no conflict, like no external conflict, right? And then he also talked about, rich and the poor, right? Resolve the inequality between rich and poor. So basically, he's talking about the world with equalization achieved. And the peaceful world and the unified world is world where no one goes hungry and no one sheds tears, he said. So it's a place where nobody's going hungry, right? Externally, nobody's going hungry and nobody's actually sad. So what kind of world is that, right? So this basically seems very, very obvious, of course, but True Parents' wish and dream are the realization of substantial world peace and unification. So their aim is to eliminate war, close the gap between rich and the poor, and to solve the problem of hunger. So that's what we read. This is the very beginning of his autobiography. So this is True Parents' dream of peace. It's a substantial world of peace and unification. So this is the same for the goal of Family Federation for World Peace and Unification. You can really literally see that in our name, right? So exactly like the founders' wishes, the goals of FFWPU is world peace and world unification. So it's literally basically our name. So, but isn't our movement spiritual, internal, and religious in nature, right? So I was saying, a substantial peace, right? External resolution, right? To hunger and starvation. So, but, our movement is chiefly spiritual, internal, and religious, isn't it, right? That is the question that comes to mind. So, to that, True Father says this. He said, I am the founder of this gigantic spiritual movement, but I am also laying the foundation to solve future physical problems of the world. I know that all this is basic for future food production and solving hunger in the world. I am so enthusiastic and have so many plans about the ocean. Anyone who comes to the Unification Church cannot help but pay attention to the ocean. So this is what he said in Gospel on the Ocean. So clearly, True Parents aim to resolve future physical problems of the world as well as the spiritual problems as well. So shouldn't we leave practical solutions to the world's politicians? Some of us might ask, right? I also question, right? Oh, there are mega billionaires out there, right? Who sort of looks like cares about the future of the world. So shouldn't we actually leave these external solutions to those people or the politicians, who make the policies across the world, right? Isn't peace automatically coming as long as we continue to offer spiritual conditions and devotions, right? Isn't our role the spiritual part, right? So, yeah, I would think that, this is a valid question. To that, what did your father say? So let's read. He said, is the president of the United States going to take responsibility for that? Will Gorbachev of the Soviet Union take responsibility? Who will take responsibility for this? Who in the world is going to do that? He's talking about hunger problem. The true parents and the siblings of the true parents have to take responsibility for it. For this reason, all our work with the sea is something I have been planning and preparing for over the last 20 years. So he clearly saying that true parents and the siblings of the true parents are the responsible party to resolve the hunger problem. So no matter how long we sit and wait, the world's politicians will not do it for us, basically. And true parents stood in the front lines and devised a practical plan, which we will cover later in the series, that they followed actually step by step. And all we need to do is sort of follow that blueprint, right? Step by step as well. So third section, how is ocean actually related to? So we talked about the dream of peace, right? And the world peace and world unification. So how actually is ocean actually related to that, right? Ocean, world peace and unification is actually true parents' dream and the goal of our movement, right? And so what is the relationship of that to basically ocean providence? What is that, right? So first of all, what did your father say about peace and unification and ocean? So if you, Google like peace and unification and ocean, those three words together, what kind of words would come up, right? What did your father say about that? So let's read some of the quotes. He said, in Guts and Will in the Ocean, he said, this is the fastest way to bring people and nations together. I'm always thinking how this can be done, and that's why I'm making a foundation on the ocean. When we make this foundation, our direction towards the future will be straight. So in here, he's saying it's the fastest way, right? Also, he said, I believe this will be a shortcut to guiding all people toward the world of peace. That's why for several decades, I have been researching, planning, and pioneering all sorts of ocean-related businesses. So he's expecting it to also be a shortcut, right? Fastest way, shortcut. So those are the key words there. And some more comes up. He said, in his autobiography, he said, the oceans can become a central point for bringing the world together. And he said, we cannot build a world of peace without first resolving the food issue. And then he said, true peace will not come as long as humanity does not solve the problem of hunger. So he's saying, we can't declare true peace as long as we don't actually first solve the hunger problem. And he said, if the person next to me is about to die of hunger, peace is a mere luxury. So no matter how much we yell and scream and preach about peace, if the person next to me is actually dying of hunger, right, it means nothing to him, right? So he's saying we need to solve that first before we can actually preach about peace. So, looking at some of these quotes, right, we can conclude a couple of things. So, first of all, there's that dream of peace, right? World peace and unification. So ocean is, in his words, fastest way, shortcut, and the central point in order to get there. And he also says solving the hunger and the food problem is actually the most precious work and is necessary before this can happen, the world peace and unification. So we can at least conclude, right, that a kind of a large part of the plan for achieving the goals of our movement is related to the ocean. At least we can conclude that some good part of their plan was in the ocean providence and the solving the food problem through ocean providence. So in his words, he said, the future economy of the world, the food problem of the world, the survival of mankind will be solved by the ocean. This time of study can determine the future life or death of mankind. So he even, goes, he says survival of mankind, right? It is a very strong word almost, right? So True Father repeatedly conveyed to us the importance of ocean in this way. Then he went out fishing himself, right? Showed us by his own actions tirelessly and continued to emphasize its importance through his own actions. So all the time, people and money he invested into the oceanic businesses was due to this importance, right? He, you can really clearly conclude that he considered it super important, So truly his words and deeds were united towards the path of his dream of peace. So then how can world unification actually be accomplished? We have to kind of look at today's world's actual situation and then see, like, can this be done, right? How can this be done? So divine principle basically is based chiefly on the New and Old Testaments of the Christian Bible. And the Christianity has as the chosen people, right, has a key role in restoring the world. That is why divine principle is Christian based, right? But if we actually look at the world's population, Christian population only takes up about 1/3 of the world's population today. So how do you think the world peace and unification will be achieved beyond the Christian religious realm? How do we unite the other 2/3 of the world? So from 1954 to 94, which is exactly 40 years, our name used to be the Holy Spirit Association for the Unification of World Christianity. That was in our name. The name, if the name were to be the goal, right? The goal was to unify the world Christianity. So it means, it kind of points to the fact that our goal was to kind of unify 1/3 of maybe, the humanity, something like that, right? And then in 1994, True Parents declared the name change for our movement, which is Family Federation for World Peace and Unification. So, again, if name were to be our goal, right? Our goal changed from unifying the world Christianity to actually achieving the real world peace and unification. So, you can kind of see the shift there in our name as well. So he said, with the teachings of the Unification Church in the Ocean Providence. So in Champamugyan Book 10, he said, what if the fish powder that we supply them saves the lives of the many refugees around the world and manages to solve the food shortage problem? When that happens, I'm sure that a large portion of humanity will work together with us. Then True Parents' legacy will remain forever, even if the earth sinks under the sea and the heavens collapse. By so doing, I want the descendants of today's Unification Church members to be able to praise and glorify God with confidence. They will see the people of the world making pilgrimages to Jardim and appreciating it as the foundation of the great achievements we have made, and particularly of our efforts to save humanity by fish farming. So he's saying, if we can do this, right, people will work together with us, and we can be confident about ourselves and in glorifying God, right? And he said, the time has arrived when we can go to the oceans near the South Pole, catch krill, and utilize it to solve the world's food shortage. This will make a real impact on humanity. That's why 2/3 of the people of the world are keeping an eye on our oceanic enterprises. With the teachings of the Unification Church in the Ocean Providence, our church members are making comprehensive preparations to solve the world's food shortage. With this, the entire world can find hope. We're past the daybreak. Now the time has come when the sun of hope is rising and no one can stop it. So this is what he said in Champamugyan Book 10. So let's break it down, right? Let's break it down into little diagram. So he said, with the teachings of the Unification Church in the Ocean Providence, he's saying, along with the teachings, right, the spiritual aspect of our movement, and along with Ocean Providence, we can make comprehensive preparations to solve the world's food shortage, right? And then if that can happen, he said, the entire world can find hope. So, and then we should be able to manage to solve the food problem. And then if that can happen, large portion of humanity will work with us. And then, this will basically become the legacy of True Parents, right? It will show the world the pureness of their intentions to as the true parents of humankind to solve the most miserable situations of the world as the parents of humankind. And so this will become basically an eternal legacy of true parents. And then he's saying time has arrived to solve the world's food shortage and then make a real impact on humanity. So he's saying, 2/3 of the people of the world are keeping an eye on our, activities, right, on the ocean. So he's saying through the teachings, right, the spiritual aspect of our movement, along with Ocean Providence, solving world hunger, the whole world will come to recognize true parents. So that is kind of his concept, right? Expectation, which is kind of a very interesting and kind of important thing to know. So at the United States Ocean Providence 20th anniversary event, a statue that holds the divine principle on one hand and a fishing pole on the other, kind of symbolizing the ocean providence and the spiritual aspect of our movement, right? This kind of a very cool concept. And this statue was offered up to true parents. So this is the picture, the 20th anniversary event. And he also talks about the method to shorten the providence of restoration. So this quote is very interesting as well. So what did True Father say about that? He said, do you want to shorten or extend the providence of restoration? Do you want to spend hundreds of thousands of years? Do you want to achieve it in decades? And then everybody answered, of course, I want to shorten it, right? Shorten it, True Father. We want to shorten the providence, right? And then he said, do you really think so? Then you have to be taught how I would do it. And then he said, we have to hurry. So how do you do it? Christianity has enthusiastically evangelized for 2,000 years, bringing the Christian population to 1 billion. Everyone admits that it is now impossible to save the world with Christianity. Only 15% of the world's 5 billion people live comfortably, while the rest are putting all of their energy into just getting by. Even if 1 billion are Christians, the remaining 4 billion are not interested in Christianity. If it takes 2,000 years to evangelize 1 billion people, how many years will it take to evangelize 5 billion people? So this point exactly, also I was wondering, but it's interesting to note that True Father literally said it, right? If it takes 2,000 years to evangelize 1 billion people, how many years will it take to evangelize 5 billion people? And now the population is not even 5, right? It's like 7 or 8 or something like that, right? Currently. And then he went on to say, what do they feel when 4 billion people who is trying to survive hear that Reverend Moon has been struggling to prepare for them for 20 years and brought food to them? Will they welcome you when they know that they have been saved from hunger by you and Reverend Moon? It is clear, right? They will want to stay in the Unification Church all the time. In a short period of time, while the world looks on in blank amazement, billions of people will enroll in the Unification Church. So this is kind of summarizes his plan, right? This is what he expected to happen, expects to happen, basically. If we can solve the hunger problem, solve the puzzle of the hunger problem, basically we can shorten the providence restoration by basically while the world looks on, with open mouth, right? Billions of people will just enroll in the Unification Church. So this is True Father's idea, which is, I thought was very interesting. Okay, so if we kind of make it into a little diagram again, he's saying that the majority of the world's population are not interested in Christianity. And by witnessing through Christianity alone, the world cannot be saved quickly, right? How many thousands of years will it take, True Father said, right? So conventional means of witnessing would take thousands of years to restore the whole world. That is true. So by solving the food problem through Ocean Providence, he's, in his mind, right? His plan is that while the world looks on in blank amazement, billions of people will enroll in the Unification Church. So that is kind of like the summary of his plan, which is like super cool and super interesting, right? And this was in the speech from August 1st, 1994. So as seen in the previous slides, we can see that the ocean providence is meant to be, a method, right, in which we can shorten the providence restoration and achieve unification of the world more quickly. Like we saw, he said, shorten, or like fastest way, shortcut, and things like that, right? So if we look from this perspective, it becomes clear why Trifada repeatedly stated that the Oceanic Foundation is the fastest way, the shortcut, and a central point in order to unify the world. So ocean providence seems to be, right, according to Trifada's words, seems to be a big part of his plan, right, in order to bring the unification of the world. So ocean providence is in fact the shortcut, right? According to Trifada's words, it's a shortcut to true parents' path of peace. So that's why true parents have invested an unimaginable amount of time and effort into the ocean throughout their lives, and it makes sense, That's and once we know about this, right? Once we make sense of this, then it sort of makes sense, right? It completely makes sense that about how much investment they made into the Oceanic Foundation throughout their lives. So to summarize this presentation, True Parents invested, we showed that True Parents invested tremendously into the ocean, even according to Trifada's own words, right? 2/3 of his life, he said, was spent relating to the ocean. And then number two, True Parents' dream of peace, which is their goal, right? Their purpose is substantial world peace and unification, which is, we said it seems obvious, but, it has to be said, right? And then number three, ocean providence is an important part of the plan to achieve that dream of peace, the world peace and unification. So those three things were covered in this presentation. So we're going to finish this up with this quote from God's Will on the Ocean. Trifada said, "This has to be done. For the future, someone has to do it. You are my hope. If you don't know that, you cannot understand even who you are. The one who is close to me is the one who will determine to be successful on the ocean." So that's the end of presentation number 1. And next one will be coming up soon. If you missed the webinar, of course, as I talked about in the introduction, we will immediately upload all the webinar presentations as a video onto our website. So please take a note, oceanhobbyseminar.com/webinar. This is where all the information on the webinar, when the next one is coming, and all the videos and resources are also there. So please take note. And thank you so much for listening this far, and see you next time. Thank you.